So USC has earned the right to say no, but will she?
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Hulkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every day. Whether you're watching me on YouTube or wherever you like to download your podcast, we are free. I appreciate your support. And if you want to appreciate me, you can hit that subscribe button. If you like the show, you can hit that subscribe button. That like button. And to all of you who have already become subscribers, thank you. This episode of Locked On USC is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Any moment more, visit FanDuel.com. So I was reading recently that North Carolina, the TarHeels, they declined an invitation to the National Invitation Tournament, the NIT, the original big dance. You know, if this were 2020 and COVID was freaking everybody out, I'd understand the choice. To kind of bow out of those extra practices and games, considering all the aggravation and the conditions that most of the student athletes in the country were contending with, I would understand. It makes sense. If you're a USC football fan or just a USC fan, you can think back to how they handled the situation in 2020. And eventually the players, they kind of led the charge with their soon-to-be former Pac-12 conference brethren with the Let Them Play campaign. Remember Keaton Slovis and a bunch of the guys on the team, they penned a letter. Eventually the season got started in October, while other conferences were well into their season. Again, story for another day. And there will be stories about this for many years and many years to come. Anyways, that year, Trojans, they were undefeated. They went into the conference championship game. They finished that season 6-1. So they were 6-0 going into the conference championship game. And remember, they were all gung-ho. They wanted to play this season. Well, after the loss to Oregon in at the Coliseum in the championship game, they declined an invitation to a bowl game. For all the reasons I said I would understand up front, what they had to deal with, yada, yada, yada. But this one just felt a little bit different. The reason they declined, Keaton Slovis, one, got hurt in the game. So they would not have been at full strength. So I get it from that perspective. But, when you're willing to play the season, you got to be willing to finish the season. And that means going to a bowl game. So this isn't 2020. And North Carolina, by the way, they played for the national championship last year in 2022. They lost to Kansas by 3 points. They started this season as the AP number 1 team. Well, in 2023, and they returned a core group of that team that went to the championship game. In 2023, they had, by Tar Heel standards, they had an unacceptable season. I think they got 19 wins. And again, they weren't selected to play in the big dance. This team of the field of 68. So they made the decision that they weren't going to play in the NIT. They were going to say, nope, it's not for us. Quote, all season, our focus and goal have been on playing the best team we could possibly become and reaching our full potential to give us another opportunity to compete, play for, and win an NCAA championship, Coach Hubert Davis said. Although we no longer have that opportunity, and this season wasn't what we had hoped for, I want to thank our players and staff for their hard work and love for Carolina basketball. Hello, how about thanking the fans who showed up home and away? Imagine if USC football chose to not play in a bowl game because they didn't make the playoffs or a major bowl game. I mean, I pointed out in 2020, while I understood the rationale, I wasn't happy about it. So when USC chose to not play in the bowl um, while eligible, they chose to not also take along that you get the extra practice time that's afforded to the team, which is a huge benefit for the younger players. Coach Davis continued in his statement. Many factors go into the postseason play, and we believe now is the time to focus on moving ahead and preparing for next season and the opportunity to again compete for an ACC and NCAA championship. I also want to thank our great fans for their incredible support. Our commitment to you is what drives us to improve our program in every way. So, again, that's what Tar Heels coach Hubert Davis said. Again, there's a little bit of contradiction in there. You want to thank the fans for their support, but you don't want to play for them at the end of the season because you're not playing for a championship. Give me a break. And you want to look forward to the future, but you don't want that extra practice time and game situations for your younger players, albeit in the NIT. Sorry, it doesn't wash. So I wonder, did the younger players even have a say in this matter? Or did a certain group tell the coaching staff they weren't playing? And I'm talking about the core group that came back to play for another championship. Did they lose their will, their drive, whatever you want to call it? I'm using the Carolina program because they returned a core group from a team that lost the championship game. Well, remember the USC football team in 2021 after they went to the conference championship game the year before. In 2021, the wheels fell off. And there was literally a player mutiny at the end of the year where a certain group of players were making a case that, they didn't care if they didn't care if they forfeited the game that they had to play at Cal because the game was being played after the Pac-12 conference championship game. I mean, it was literally the epitome of a meaningless game that had no bearing on anyone's postseason play. USC or Cal wasn't going to go bowling, and it wasn't going to affect anybody in the Pac-12 as far as, making the playoffs or whatever. So this has me thinking ahead to when the playoffs now expand to 12 teams, starting in 2024. Are we now getting to the point where if you're not going to the playoffs or the Rose Bowl, our blue blood programs, are they going to say are they just going to say thank you to the extra practice time and the financial payouts? Just say, sorry, we don't need it. I get it. North Carolina doesn't want to belittle themselves and play in the NIT because it's for the bridesmaids. I love that value, the way they cherish their tradition and their history, but I really do despise the elitism. It comes across the wrong way. And I would say the exact same thing if USC chose to not play in a bowl game in a down year when, maybe they lost 3 or 4 games that's taking them out of the playoff picture, or the Rose Bowl, or a New Year's Day 6 bowl game, New York. But, don't the fans get to have a say in the matter? Or are they just expected to, pay, show up, and then shut up if the players want to wag the dog? So if the tail decides it's in charge, we're just supposed to, and coming from the fans' perspective, we're just supposed to suck it up? Oh, well, this is the new norm? I don't know. Here's one way to look out for the fans and the donors who support the programs financially. How about this? If a program chooses to pass over a bowl game or in NCAA tournament time, NIT tourney invite, then how about the following year they're not allowed to play, even if they're eligible? Kind of like, hey, you know what? You might be mortgaging your future. You only get to go to the playoffs. It's playoffs or bust forever. How's that? I mean, remember when playing in the postseason was considered a reward? In the real world, you don't get to pick. I guess you do, but in the sports world, you get what you earn and you earn what you get. That's part of the process. Accepting losing. And then in college football, or college basketball, if you get the opportunity, because you're always looking ahead to the future, and you've got a chance for your younger players to get some playing opportunities and that extra practice time. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a fan of this new paradigm shift, the way things are going. It started with players bowing out individually. Now teams are doing this. Gotta put some guardrails. We gotta fix this somehow. Figure it out. If you have any ideas, let me know. In the meantime, why don't we talk about FanDuel? Because we are at the midway point of the NBA season. It's here, and it's now probably the perfect time for you to download the FanDuel app if you haven't already. They are America's #1 sports book. And you're saying, well, why should I? I'm going to tell you why. Because you're guaranteed to be a winner. New customers, you're going to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. So just do this. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe. It's secure. It's super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to who's going to be the highest point scorer, who's going to make the most three-pointers. If you're a prop bet person, jump on that action. And it even allows you, FanDuel, to combine your bets. And you can have a bigger chance at a huge payout by doing a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. So why don't you grab your bracket and go listen to Locked On College Basketball? They've got their college bracket breakdown with national analysis and the insights from your local experts. The Locked On College Basketball bracket breakdown has everything you need to make the most informed decisions in your bracket. You can find this episode on Locked On College Basketball wherever you get your podcast, on YouTube. On yesterday's episode of Locked On USC, remember, come at you 5 times a week, so go check it out. I made the claim that Justin Dedich is the team's most valuable player, both sides of the ball. Caleb Williams, I will clarify this for everybody, is the team's best player, and he is the team's best chance to make the playoffs. But someone still has to get him the ball. Don't forget that. So as long as that duo stays healthy and on the field at the same time, the offense will be just fine. And I know I said that there isn't anyone on the defense who I can make that same claim. That if the defense lost a starter, then, the poop would hit the fan and all things are going to go bad. Nothing can go worse for USC's defense than how it went last year. Well, I guess it could, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole because that's a really scary proposition. But let's pretend I didn't make that claim. Who are the 1 or 2 players on the defense that Grinch just cannot afford to lose in 2023? I guess we can start with the front 3-4 guy, whatever scheme they're in, or we can work our way forward from the safety positions. Not sure it really makes a difference. So let's just start up front. Which defensive line player, and I know a couple of them are transfers who haven't even played for USC yet, who are literally invaluable. See, that's the thing. On the defensive line, if Tuli was returning, Tuli Tuiapelotu, and they made him an offer, and I can't believe he refused it, but he's the easy call. Now, we have an idea what Jack Sullivan or an Anthony Lucas and a Kion Bars are capable of based on their game film, seeing what they did at their previous stops. They haven't played all down yet at USC. And we know that Tyrone Taleni was a guy that caused problems for the opposition. But until I know the middle of the line is plugged up, I could throw Kion Bars into the mix, especially since I have no idea what's going to go on with Kobe Pepe and Colin Mobley, who are practicing, but who are also in the transfer portal, sort of. I have a feeling that the May 1st transfer portal window, when that opens, is where the impact player is probably going to be found on the defensive line. Now, I did mention some names up there. I'm going to come back to that. But as far as if all of a sudden, all those names that I mentioned, if one of them wasn't able to play, would it make a difference? None of them played for USC except for Tyrone Taleni. And, Kobe Pepe's had a couple of chances, and I don't think Colin Mobley's played. So there's that. Linebacker is probably a little bit easier to narrow down. We saw Eric Gentry and what he can bring to the field. His length and his tenacity, those are great. And it causes issues for quarterbacks who have, they have to adjust their throwing window. When Eric's in the passing lane, 6'6", and his arm length is also extended, it's more like 9'6". That's hard to throw against over the middle, especially. And while Mason Cobb is coming over to take them, basically take that middle linebacker spot away from Gentry, Eric is the guy the group needs. So he might be the guy on defense if I had to choose one. There isn't anyone at cornerback that belongs in this discussion. There's a lot of talent, a lot of playmakers with potential, but none of them are Adoree Jackson. And he's not walking through those doors anytime soon. Well, maybe to watch practice, but that's about it. So then you have safety. Kalen Bullock is the guy. He takes away, the deep ball, the entire threat of trying to go deep. He's got that sideline to sidelines, not just speed, but really long, graceful, deer-like gallop. I mean, if you could say that, he's going to be a good safety in the NFL, I'd go along with that, especially if he can pack on another 10 to 15 pounds. So for me, it comes down to Gentry and Bullock. And this is kind of a coin toss. But I'm going to go with Bullock. And, let me tell you why. Simply because, Gentry last year, this is what he did. We know he played in 11 games. He missed a few with his injury. 71 tackles. I'm just going over his numbers that I've gone over with you guys before, which would have been third on the team. Had he played in those 3 games, he leads the team in tackles. He also had a couple sacks. He had 3 quarterback hurries, 2 forced fumbles, 3 pass breakups, and he also had an interception. But Kalen Bullock led the team with 5 picks. And he was a first-team All-American per Pro Football Focus. He was also first-team All-Pac-12 and He was all Pac-12 first team and all Pac-12 second team. I'll have to go check that out. That doesn't make much sense. Anyways, those are the two guys who are the playmakers and who can affect a game just by being on the field. Both are long, they're fast, both are, they make their impact against in the passing game. So, and the reason I'm going with Bullock as being the guy as opposed to Gentry is because the linebacker room is better than last year, at least on paper. And I know that Kalen has weaknesses, but I didn't see anybody that came in behind him last year that I would have felt comfortable with. So USC needs more impact players on defense. I'm going to talk about a couple of those guys in our next segment. But you tell me, who on USC's defense, currently on the roster, can USC not afford to go into the season or play without next year? I know we've got a real small sample size to work with based on the players that we anticipate playing that have transferred in, but throwing all that into the mix. In the previous episode, I said USC cannot do well. Well, they'll do well. Justin Dietrich is the most valuable player for the reasons that I mentioned on the last episode. Getting the ball to Caleb so he can work his magic and allowing the offensive line to kind of gel and germinate from within. Justin Dietrich is that anchor. And without him, too many things would have to be adjusted on that offensive line. On defense, you don't really have that guy. So if you had to pick the MVP that the defense couldn't afford to lose, who is it? Tell me. I made the case on the offensive side and for the team. So, like I said, in the next segment, we'll talk about a couple of impact guys that USC and the fans could be looking forward to. You ever hear the phrase, looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane? The physical looking freak who you look at and you go, wow, that's a dude. But then you watch him play on the field and he just completely underwhelms you. Can you say Wole Batiku? Wole looked like what you want in your football player. I mean, he just looked like, wow, he was also rated really high. So you have to go watch his film to understand that he was really raw. He was still learning the game of football. And when you watched his film, you also might have noticed, especially if you watched him up close, he was really stiff. And so unless you can develop some technique with his raw abilities, he had a tough road to try and live up to those expectations. So again, while he looked the part, he just didn't play the part. And I'm bringing this up because I recently just saw a before USC pick and since he's been at USC pick of Taka Curtis. My eyeballs bulged almost as much as he has since he's been at USC. Tackett looks like a mini Brian Cushing. And it was kind of hard to tell last week because when I saw him, because he was in pads, so he naturally looked big anyway. This dude's a weight room warrior. So by the time fall camp arrives, he's going to probably look like the guy who wants that number 55 jersey. Maybe next year. This year, Curtis is wearing number 25, which is odd because that's usually our running back number. Last guy I remember wearing it was Ronald Jones. And look, I'm not a guy who likes to put a lot of extra juice on a freshman to contribute, but Curtis might be that guy. And considering the opportunity, why not? Mason Cobb, Shane Lee, Rajon Davis, and Eric Gentry are why not. And there's also, Chris Thompson Jr. and Garrison Madden. So the linebacker room is deep. And again, Tackett's a freshman. All those players I mentioned just now are not. You know what else is unique about USC's linebacker room? Davis and Thompson are the only two who this staff did not recruit or bring in through the transfer portal. So does that give Tackett an advantage? What it does say is that Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch, they attacked the transfer portal like Ray Cushing used to attack UCLA quarterbacks, looking for linebackers because they needed more than what they inherited. How's that? How did I walk that line? So if Tackett Curtis can prove early, not just in spring camp, that he can be an impact player during fall camp, he's a freshman who you can probably play early to see, what he can bring when the lights are on and there's fans in the stands. Put this guy's name on the impact list. And it's just, I'm doing this based on his size alone. Anthony Lucas. Raise your hand if you're old enough to remember Pete Carroll's teams between 2003 and 2009. There's a lot of you out there. When those guys walked on the field, both sides of the ball, they already won the intimidation game because they looked like NFL prospects playing at USC. I saw Anthony Lucas in high school, and you could tell then that he had the frame to get big. Well, right now, he's big, but he just kind of needs to tighten the ship up a little bit. I'll be honest, he reminds me of Leonard Big Cat Williams with his size and his demeanor, the way he just carries himself. I'll say this also. If Coach Sean Newer can summon up the ghost of Big Cat and put him inside Lucas's 6'5", 300-pound body, that's a true sophomore impact player that you can tag along with, true freshman Tackett Curtis. See where I'm going with this? And then you got Sam Green. Can he win the rush end job by year's end? I don't know if he'll win the job early. Look, I only saw a few minutes of him as he was going to practice last week. And then what I was able to catch while he was doing his drills over 100 plus yards away. But he still caught my eye. He's got really good size, really fast. But that job is going to go to a vet with experience, especially to start the season. That position it just didn't produce last year. Not unless Tooley was playing it. So maybe Jack Sullivan, Romello Height, Jamil Muhammad, Eric Gentry. This is why Sam Green probably has the biggest hurdle to become an impact player, just because of those aforementioned names. I really think Grinch and Riley and the staff are going to try and force feed that into those players that they brought over recently through the transfer portal. And let's see, maybe Sam can grow into the job. But I really do think right now, based on size and just going, ooh, they look like dudes. You got to put Tackett Curtis and Anthony Lucas into your immediate impact basket. So there it is. Another episode, Locked on USC in the books. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with another episode because we come at you 5 times a week. Know you love it. And you're going to get all your USC news, notes, information, recruiting updates, all that in 30 minutes or less. The only place we can get that right here on Locked on USC. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.